All right, we're going to get started. In each sort of one of our prep panels, and I think just hearing everyone's sort of trajectory, each one of us, I think we can acknowledge that we have come up or have worked in pretty male-dominated industries or verticals. And I'm curious for each one of you to share, like, how has that shaped your leadership style? And what have you learned by being, maybe one of a few or one of just a handful within your organization that sit at the table, pulling from the previous panel, from a leadership perspective?
I'll hop in there because I will say I think we are fortunate. Marketing is a very female-friendly industry. Like, yes, there are male-dominated aspects to it, but so many times in my career I've been encountered with incredible female-led teams. A really kind of lesser-known fun fact. So for an era on Gatorade, the entire leadership team was all female-led. And Gatorade obviously is like such a competitive sport, male-oriented type brand. You don't expect that. So this was sort of like the era I grew up in. And what I'll also say is even in different eras that were more male-dominated or different team structures, different team compositions, it just takes one. Like, it takes one female leader that you see yourself in, that is a reflection of you, that you say, I think I can learn a lot from her, and then you reciprocate, right? Then you pay it forward. And it's like, okay, so who's looking at me thinking that right now, and how can I pull them along? How can I pull them up? How can I elevate and raise them? So the power of the one-to-one, despite what the composition or like your individual team structure makes up, like that's the key, and that's been really important to me in my career.
I can jump in. So, as a woman and a woman of color in Hollywood, I am often like one of the only in the sort of senior leadership meetings. And I think that part of what's helped me along the way is that even since I was a baby executive right out of college, I remember one of the most funny and now like memorable moments of my career was I was a marketing assistant working in the music business, and I got invited to my first marketing meeting, like the entire sort of marketing team. Walked in, sat right at the table, as I normally would do, right? And then after the meeting, my boss was like, by the way, the assistants usually sit on the outer ring and the execs sit on the table. And I was like, why? And I think he was so taken aback that I even asked, like, why? Like, what is the purpose of this? And so for me, it's just really been about being really fearless and taking up space. And especially in the places where I do feel like I'm one of the few, I remind myself that we talk about diversity is good for the business. It's not just so that you have a very pretty and colorful, like, corporate Christmas card to send out. It's because you actually want different perspectives to make the decision, so that you're looking at a problem from a lot of different ways. So if I work so hard to get to the room, and when I'm in the room, I am acting like everyone else in the room, what is the point of diversity? Do we just need people that look different all acting like the same white male leader, or do we need actually different people so that we can have different perspectives? So I just try to remind myself that, like, to be in the room is important, and to be myself is more important.
I love that, and I can really resonate with that space. So when I started in the NFL, there was the Me Too movement hadn't happened, and I know that's crazy because I know we all look like we're like 21, so I don't know how I can say that. Yeah, we all
have been working for about 2 to 3 years.
That's right. We all look great, so you would never believe the Me Too movement had not happened, but it hadn't. And a lot of times I was the only female traveling on the plane of football players. I was the only female at the table. I was very lucky. There really were no female leaders in our space for me to like look up or emulate, but I did have some really great males that took me under their wings, even some coaches that were like, we see how hard you're working, we see what you're doing. But one thing I can say is it was because I was always prepared. I always knew what I was doing. I worked extra hard because people were like, a female in football, you don't know what this is. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to run the plays. And so I had to prove myself, but I think with that, once I did, they respected me more. A quick story for that is, it was during a game. I was at, this was actually in Cleveland. I was at a game, and my boss came up to me. Again, like a lot of times they thought they could like railroad you, and he was like, I called what was going to happen, not the play, not the coach's play, but I directed the game from on the field. I was like, okay, we're gonna play this song in the third quarter break. He comes on over top of me on the intercom. He's like, don't play that song. And they're up in the booth, and I was like, play the song. And he's like, don't play the song. And he was like, I'm like, play the song. He goes, if you play that song, I'm firing you. I'm like, I'm willing to take that risk. If it doesn't work, you can fire me right here, and I will walk off this field. They played the song. For if anyone's an Ohio State person, it was Hang On Sloopy. We had this whole big question. I went and did all this research. Like I said, be prepared. I'm like, it's the state song of the state of Ohio. I found the referendum that was actually through the government, like the referendum that was the state song, not Ohio State song at the time. And so we played it. Everyone got up. Luckily, I didn't have to leave my job at that time. But I think that being prepared and being able to stand up, having a little bit of a thick skin that you grow from being in these situations helped. And everyone
Would you say you're right?
No, but what made me feel good was the booth was like, we're going with Beth. And so it made me feel good that everyone in the booth was like, we're going with Beth. And so I'm like, all right, please everyone stand up. Please everyone stand up. And they did.
Way to call the bluff.
It really is, and I'm glad that you kind of stood up for yourself because, just hearing all these fascinating stories, and Kamala, when you kicked us off, you said something about representation, right? So one of the first things I've always thought about is embracing being different. I'm an immigrant, moved here 25 years ago for college, stayed, called the tri-state area, had my entire adult life. The way I look at this is, how do you embrace change? I was Division II soccer, the only person that looked like me, so I understand that, but honestly, I was so young. My late teens, I had no idea I was different. And I was a stuffy soccer player. I played for the money, I'll say that. I needed the scholarship, but I just played. And as I kind of was embracing change, and if there's anything I would tell this audience or anybody, especially young women out there that look like anybody, what representation is key. I work for an age-old industry, right? Energy's been around forever. I'm very proud to say I'm the first female officer of color for a 100-year-old company. And you know what? In the industry, there are not too many women that look like me. I'll be honest. And it just doesn't. And what can we do? What can we do to switch that paradigm? I think each one of us has these compelling stories, the panel before us. And I think each one of us just needs to embrace being different. And it's okay. It's okay telling, all right, you know what? We are who we are. How do we take that step forward? And I'll say this, playing soccer, just being part of team sports, taught me a lot, because in a team, guess what? There's 11 of us. You could be Lionel Messi, those of you that follow football or soccer. He alone could never perform with Argentina up until, a year ago. Why? He didn't have the right support staff. Every single person matters. Once you start embracing that, the resiliency, everything I was hearing, humanizing that change, just lead with it. Don't overthink, don't double think anything. I know I do that all the time. Stop second guessing yourself, just do it.
Thank you so much. So we're going to talk a little bit about mentorship, and it's interesting in the previous panel, and we've been talking about it a little bit. I specifically with either young women that I mentor, and one of my former mentors always said to me, take the seat at the table you want. And if any meeting I'm in, I try to get there as early as possible to take the seat at the table that I want. And I always have taken that with me, and I always pass that on. And so sort of back to the frame of mentorship, how has mentorship or specific mentors through your trajectory been impactful, and sort of also in the theme of giving it back, how do you engage in mentorship within your organization?
Start this one. So I think that mentorship is extremely important. I'm like I said, I was lucky, but I also had a lot of male allies that were a part of my ship. Once I got to UA, though, I actually had some really strong females that were also was really great to lean on for support and just even ask advice. I think one of the things I would say is don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I know we always feel like we have to know everything, like I said, being prepared, but in order to grow, we have to be able to recognize our weaknesses. So vulnerability, I don't look at it as a weakness, I actually look at it as a strength if people can do it. And one thing that I do, we actually have, our ERG at Under Armour. It's called WIL, Women Inspiring Leading and Living. It's our largest ERG at Under Armour. We have over 700 members, 10 chapters globally, and I co-chair that group. And that group to me is crazy important. It's like another second job. If anyone here works with their ERG or TRGs at their groups, it's a second job, legit. But it's so important to me because people have helped me along the way. I have 2 young daughters, and I want people to do the same for them. And I want them to have strong males too, in their lives that they can look up to, that are all supporting the same causes. You've heard so many beautiful stories here on how people have had to go through it, but like, if we can help that process, have people help lift us up, there's room for everyone. You don't need to squash someone down to make yourself tall. So the will has been amazing for me. And just a quick story, like, I know I shared this when we were talking, but we have made like real differences. In our Latin America, women are afraid to go to work because they're being killed. They're literally being murdered going into their jobs. In our EMEA offices, the representation of female to male leadership was so small. We were able to meet with our CEO. Our CEO actually went down to Latin America to talk to these problems about with our teammates there in Mexico City. And we had also seen somewhere when we were getting the conversations from EMEA, they went to Amsterdam and they found ways to help bring out more parity in this. So to me, that's making real change. But again, we have to be vulnerable in order to bring those things to light. So that has been a huge, just like, North Star for me through my career.
The way that I think about mentorship is really relationship building, right? Mentorship is not necessarily hierarchical, right? There's mentorship from senior leadership to more junior leadership. I think some of the most impactful mentorship can sometimes be from junior employees to more senior employees. So for those of us that are in senior leadership, I highly recommend getting involved in either the early career group or any of the various ERGs, whether it's for women, people of color, et cetera, because there's so much to learn. There was someone on the panel prior who said Gen Z is ready and they are coming. And I actually find it really exciting because they question things that we don't and make us sort of explain, sort of think about, oh, is this needed or is this just artifice? Which a lot of that happens. But I also want to just talk a little bit about sponsorship. So I've been incredibly lucky to have had not only mentors, but a few sponsors. And for me, a sponsor is someone that is going to say your name in a room that you're not in to help you get that next opportunity. I think there's a lot of data that shows that often women and people of color sometimes are over-mentored and under-sponsored, right? And so I would encourage everyone to be thinking about who can I be a sponsor for and who might be a sponsor for me, because to the point that you made earlier about working at a 100-year company, like, we are all, at a certain extent, we're working in systems that are decades and decades older than us, and that's not about guilt and shame. We can't go back 100 years ago and make Hollywood different than it was. That's not what we're talking about. It's about what are we doing today in the present. And I'm okay if you say, hey, we've never had an X, Y, and Z that looked like you in this role until now. But I'm not okay if there isn't a plan for how you're going to have 10 more in the next 5 years, right? We can't be talking about a change that isn't actually going to come. And so I think sponsorship is just a really critical one to think about. How do we actually get leadership teams to look the way that we all say we want them to? It requires someone to identify talent and actually bring them up.
When it comes to mentorship, Kamala, I was actually inspired by a statistic from your world, which you probably know inside and out and why you're doing the work that you're doing. But in 2023, it's Oscar season, right? So we're all filling out our ballots. In 2023, only 18% of films had more speaking roles from women than men. Only 18%. So this is why Kamala's role is so important. But the way it relates to me is almost like a metaphor for all industries and all business, where women using their voice, taking up space, rippling wider. What I like to think about is how there's formal mentorship, and I think these women have covered it very nicely. There's also just instantaneous encouragement, like how when a woman takes a leading role in a meeting, how do you come out of that meeting and just say, "Look at awesome," like, and just slap the tire, like. When an employee comes into your office and is a female asking for a raise or a promotion, how do you encourage that? How do you say yes? Like, that is, that is a great way to know your worth and to use your voice. So how do we just bring that out in women in these little micro moments to say, like, you are using your voice, I see you, and I like it.
It's important to kind of, I think everything you guys said, that statistic is so powerful, 18%, and how many movies are coming out.
And look what happened with Barbie this year.
Exactly. I mean, the Academy Awards were tomorrow, but it's very interesting with mentorship. What does it take? few minutes, 4, 5, 6 minutes of your time. You mentioned something, Laura, about, open door policy. Come in, let's talk. And it's gender neutral, right? Talk to people, spend time, Everybody wants that kind word. We've all felt down, right? We've all felt that we could use help. We've all felt that, you know what, I'm having a really terrible day. Who here has not had that, right? And sometimes, especially women, we have trouble saying no to things. I read something recently, so I am not the owner of this quote. Those of you that are familiar, they were former actors, now they run a very successful luxury label of their own. The Olsen sisters said this, no is a complete sentence. Period. I absolutely love that, because as women, we just do. And I love saying this to female members of my team. I say this to anybody, male, female, come talk to me. It's okay. It's okay to be assertive. State your point. Guess what? You might lose. I've been in the losing end so many times. At the end of the day, it takes just 2, 3, 4 minutes of your time, right? Talk to somebody. Give them your POV, because there's a very high chance you've been through what they're going through. Just because they have AI, and yes, I probably used an Nokia flip phone like so many of us here. But you know what? So what? Technology's changed. It doesn't change the time you're giving somebody.
Thank you for sharing. Can each one of you share, I think all of us in sort of our conversations, outside of your organization or even within your organization, what sort of groups have facilitated your growth from, a female leadership or a female in marketing perspective?
And I can go. So I'll share this. I'm a chief member, like so many you are, and I'm sure so many of
Members.
Yes. I think there's so many of us in the room here. I also belong in the World LPG, and I sit on the World Liquid Propane Gas Association. I sit in their Women in Leadership panel, Women in Energy panel in the US, and it's fascinating to kind of get these groups together. But I think the real change would happen when we stop segregating it based on gender.
Yeah.
Let's all get in the same group. How about not women in energy, just energy marketers? When we have these awards, I always think about this. Why do we have a separate category for Women of the Year? We never do that for Man of the Year. How about we just have it for Marketer of the Year and include us all? Because we should be there. We're in 2024 people, right? We should not be so far behind every little category. But I do think just, being a chief member has had a lot of benefits. I enjoy my core group. I love reading the resources, right? I also belong to Forbes Women. A couple times a year I'll go to the city, listen. I did hear Brazil St. John speak once, which was fantastic. So it's just getting these inspirational women to hear them speak. And can I leverage a little bit of what they're saying?
So I definitely need to read or reread the article on no as a complete sentence, because I don't use it very often. Ever since high school, I'm this type of person. I've never met an extracurricular I didn't want to do. Right? But for me, it really is very passion-driven. It's not sort of feeling obligated, right? I feel like there are spaces that I feel like I will either benefit from or be able to contribute to, and if I feel like I have something to contribute, I want to give it. So at present, I'm on the board of the Black House Foundation, which is an incredible organization in entertainment that's really focused on creating more opportunities for Black creators, executives, and others in the industry so we can build a more equitable Hollywood. For about 10 years now, I've been on the board, now the governing board of a charter school organization in LA. For me as an immigrant also, my parents came to the US from Jamaica specifically for, improved opportunities for them and their family. And educational equity, I think, is one of the best investments we can make if we want to actually drive equity overall. So I work with and I mentor a lot of high school students, middle school students, college fairs, all of those things, and I feel like that's so important. And then ERGs, I've done and led and founded a number of them. And I think how that connects to the professional piece is especially when you are more junior, but it continues a lot of times when you are a woman or a person of color. You're not always going to get that chance for that leadership role at the time that you feel like you're ready for it. Right? And I think when you can find the organizations that will help you to build those leadership skills, to get the practice at how do I actually collaborate with a group of people that have different perspectives? How do I actually negotiate sort of like building, putting on an event or bringing in speakers or building a strategy are all things that I did in those extracurricular things that now I also, like, those are skills that I have for my, 9 to 7, 8, 9, 10, my daytime job. And so I do think that thinking about what you get from those organizations that, you're excited about and how you can translate that, and then brand yourself. Like, I would talk to my bosses and my leadership about, oh, this weekend I was facilitating a panel for brand innovators, or, next weekend I'm going to do something for Black House. Like, they need to know that we are out there helping to build their brand and that they should invest in us.
I love that, and especially love the thought. I think that should be nailed in, like, making sure you're socializing it, making sure you're letting people know what's going on. As we said, I think I already mentioned, I co-chair Will. I also do WISE, so Women in Sports and Entertainment, and I'm on the board for Biz Bash Sports, which is great because there's a really good cross-collaboration of male and female minds that put together things. But one of the things I wanted to bring up in this space, because I know we chatted about it, is I think it's super important whether it's extracurricular, but as we grow up, we're lucky. We didn't have COVID when we were starting out. We have had an opportunity to build and foster relationships with women, men, whomever. The one I'm talking about is mostly women focused, but from a young age. And and everyone knows everyone's skeletons in your closet because we didn't have cell phones like they do now. So we got that here. We don't have them on video. But build your own network and your board of directors. I can't tell you, my girls were all texting me good luck, have fun, you're gonna crush it. And it's just those little things, but also hey, I'm sending up smoke, it's not fire yet, but can you guys help me with this problem? Or can you give me some advice? And I think that's been super helpful for a lot of us. Yesterday being International Women's Day, we got a little sappy, of course, there's the love flowing on the text chains, but I think that's really important too, is to build your own board of directors that who people you can rely on that are going to sponsor you, that are going to say your name in the room when you're not there. They are going to recognize your work and bring it forward. That to me has been really big, and also very helpful mentally for me to have someone to lean on.
I'm so glad you brought up the personal board of directors because this has been my crew for the past 7 months. So I mentioned 17 years working for big multinational CPG companies, P&G and Pepsi, and then just shifted into working for a small high-growth company, Foxtrot, that doesn't have ERGs, that doesn't have big national and global networks of women's groups that I participated in at Pepsi. So where those extracurriculars were right at my fingertips and so easy to dip into, my universe shifted a bit. And so the personal board of directors has been my sort of lighthouse of wait, what should I join? And where should I spend my time? And where should I show up? And that's what landed me here at South by Southwest. They're you got to get to South by Southwest. This is where the conversation is happening. So a little bit kind of in that recalibration space, but it's what brought me here. It's what introduced me to you women. And it's these are the connections that keep going. So amen to the personal board of directors. Love it.
All right, so this went so fast. We didn't even really get to any legit work stuff, but I will round us out then, I think, with a little fun question, because it came up in the last panel. Speaking of just big bad women of the year, I would love to hear from each one of you. If you have one, you can decline, but your favorite Taylor Swift song. Mine is All Too Well. Love it. Or Beyonce. I'll give a
was jamming this morning. My playlist was it was Lizzo to Maggie Rogers to Taylor Swift. So it was I was in the shower just Reputation, going hard, singing out loud. So yeah, love me Taylor Swift.
I have to cheat a little bit. I do like Taylor Swift, and I would say the song I've been jamming to lately is probably If I Was a Man. I actually think as a woman in the workplace, you should definitely look at those lyrics. It's very funny. But obviously, when asked about music, I have to talk about Beyonce. And I think my favorite at the moment is probably Cozy, which is such a great song because it's really about sort of loving who you are and being really comfortable in your skin. And I just think that Bee so beautifully embodies that. And I think what has made her so sort of elevated in our culture is that I do think that she reminds you to see that in yourself as well. None of us are going to be Queen Bee, all hail the Queen, but I do think that she inspires me every day to be my best self. Whenever I'm feeling tired, I'm like, Beyonce also only has 24 hours in a day, so I know I can do more.
Okay, I'm bad because I do like Taylor Swift, and I think from a marketing and entrepreneur standpoint, she's a badass. Like, I mean, brilliant. Like what she's done and how she's completely transformed communities with how much money. But we tend to listen to more like with my daughters, it might be like Ella Fitzgerald or like Louis Armstrong, like they're talking together. But I have a really funny Taylor Swift story. So watching the playoffs, I think you can tell that I've got a big football background. So my daughters are big football fans. They win, and whether you're Kansas City or what, we may have had some Travis Kelce things going on. But my daughter, she's watching it, and we didn't want the Chiefs to win this game. She's like, why is his mom on the field with him? It was Taylor Swift. So I actually had a proud mom moment. I was like, my daughters have not been like completely commercialized. They were like, she's like, why is that his mom? And my husband and I just looked at each other, started dying laughing. I was like, that's not his mom. But like, so that was kind of like my proud mom moment. I'm like, all right. But no, I do think she's amazing.
All right, so there's so many with both artists. I think they're both phenomenal. They've single-handedly changed the face of how you market yourself, so if you want to kind of even think about that. But I took 63 flights in United last year, business alone. So when you board United, they play that Romeo and Juliet song from Taylor Swift. That's been stuck in my head forever, and I think I'm already 10 flights in the first 2 months. So I'm going to give that my favorite song for now.
Well, thank you all so much. This was such a pleasure. Big round of applause. Thank you.